What's up, guys? It's Kobe Black, also known as Paparazzi. Real quick before we start the interview, I just wanted to personally thank you guys for asking these questions. You had some really good questions. After all these years of training under Professor Draculino and interviewing him throughout that time, it's always awesome to get some new, fresh questions and pick his brain and hear these really good answers come out of him. So I wanted to thank you for that. And if you can, stick around at the end of the video. I'm just going to tell you a couple things that we plan on doing with Reddit in the future. I think you guys will be interested in it. And again, just want to say thank you for these wonderful questions, and we'll get right to the interview. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, Professor Draculino here. Professor Black Belt, 5th degree from Master College Gracie Jr. I'm going to be answering a bunch of questions from readers from Reddit, and I hope you like the answers. I will try my best to do a good job in here. Hope you guys like it.
One of Drax Black Belts, Brandon Wolverine Mullins, did a seminar at our school once. He was great. I would be curious who, out of all the people he has taught, was in his opinion the most naturally talented, the quickest study, so to speak.
The kind of geek. You have the best nickname ever, man. I give you that. Thank you for the question. Well, I had a lot of really talented guys, naturally gifted athletes, several of them. And I also had, on the other hand, people who still couldn't ride a bicycle, people who still couldn't do jumping jacks. But it's a funny thing that the naturally gifted guy, most of the time, is not a hard worker, unfortunately. Because they get by just being the best without putting the work and putting effort on it. So a lot of times my challenge is to get the naturally gifted guy to work hard and to be even better, to be a machine. But that's a very tough thing to do. But whenever you get the combination of both, then it's going to be a world champion. There's going to be somebody that's going to put a mark on the sports. I have like some examples. For example, I have Romulo Barral, which is like a supernatural, big, strong, flexible, explosive, tough guy who trains more than anybody that I know. We had also, like a student of mine, well, black belt world champion 2 times, Eric Vanderlei, which is like one of the strongest guys I've ever seen in my life. Like a freak strong, and very technical. He was world champion. After he won the Worlds, he got a couple of injuries, so he never worked as hard again, but still one of the most talented, gifted guys I've ever seen. And several others. Edson Sururu, like a capoeira master, who's like a naturally gifted guy. You teach him one thing, he's doing live training same day. So I have a lot of them. But like I said, the challenge is to make these guys work hard. But those 3 really work hard and they do great.
All right, this next one is by... How the hell do you say that? F-A-B-C-S.
F-A-B-C-S.
Fabs?
Fabs. Fabs. Hey Fabs. I hope I'm saying your nickname right. You know what I mean? There's some meaning in there, I know for sure. Thank you for your question.
I have a simple question to Draculino. What is the best advice he ever got related to BJJ? Who gave that advice and why did it help?
Thank you for your question, Fabs. Fabs. I hope I'm right. It was from my Master College Gracie Jr. He was always an inspirational professor who was more on the big picture of things versus being the guy that really puts the hand on you and corrected little minimal details. Even though he did that with me, like consonants or not, 2 of the best things that I do in Jiu-Jitsu, he was the one that actually put all the details and worked really hard on me to get better on those, which is like the drop Suranagi takedown and also the back take. But he was always more like a big picture kind of guy. And one time he gave me the best advice ever in relate to my game in Jiu-Jitsu. He was always sitting on his chair back in the day. It was like a chair, we used to call that chair the throne. Well, it was like a plastic chair that cost probably $5. But anyway, he was sitting there and he always liked to see us training. So he was never like that guy also to be like, hey, do this, do that. Hey, stand up, sweep. No, he was like always quiet and looking. And then he looked the whole training, like really focused on looking at the training. And then after I trained, I don't remember who it was I was training with. He came to me and said like, I was like national champion in the brown belt. I was like super fight champion, 2 times national champion in Brazil. I was like on a tear on the brown belt. I was really good shape and training. And he goes like, Draculino, like, you're in really good shape, but you rely on your physical ability a lot, and you have a big problem on your game. I was like, yeah, master, what is that? You only do things towards your right side. I was like, what do you mean? You only pass the guard to the right. You only get the back starting from the right. You only sweep people starting from the right. You do everything from the right side. Your left side is dead. You're trying to pass this guy's guard, and he was like blocking really well the right side, and the left side was wide open, and you didn't even try once. I was like, man. And I started thinking, and I started to incorporate in my game doing things to both sides. Not just sweeps, but actually throws and takedowns. I was starting to do throws not just to the right, but to the left, and passing the guard, varying the sides left and right, and sweeping also both ways. And that made like probably the biggest revolution of my game, because I mean, more than like putting the hands on me and give me like a new technique that you see like every single day, he changed my game forever doing that. So, you know, that's probably the best advice I got in related to technical jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to say about, you know, life in general, but for technical jiu-jitsu, that's for sure the best one.
And just related, but what was kind of cool is someone responded to that, a student here. This is Kerrigan Zergahils.
Kerrigan?
Yeah, he said, what he told me was to be calm and clear my mind. I'm at my best when I'm not thinking, because me overthinking on the mat is a huge problem I face. So what's kind of cool about that is everyone has their own thing that's holding them back.
100%. You know, speaking about overthinking, I think overthinking is bad for anything in life. Overthinking, of course, you have to think about it and analyze and, you know, and all that. But if you overthink, you're going to begin to create problems and demons that are not even there in the first place. If you overthink, you don't get out of your bed. Think about that. So I 100% agree with that.
AA348.
AA348.
Very curious to read his responses. I'm a Draculino fan, not least because we're the same age and size. It's very inspiring to see him continued his continued athletic ability and intensity when he rolls. I'd be curious to hear his thoughts on aging and any ways his performance and training has changed as he's got older.
Definitely, brother. It definitely changed. But I'm a big person in trying to get not only the downside of it, but also the good side of it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I lost my speed a lot. Like my speed, my velocity in training decreased a lot. I used to be like one of the fastest guys. I used to like spin to the back like crazy. I used to like go for takedowns, you couldn't even see me, and jump into pass guard. I was really fast guy, and that started to decrease, and I think it has to do a lot with explosion. So I lost a little bit of my explosion ability that I used to have when I was younger. But as I got older, one thing got way better, my pressure. I know for sure that nowadays my pressure on the top game and my control with the little nuances of how to control the person and put them in harm's way and put them uncomfortable increased a lot. So after I got older, like I still get a lot of people all over the world when I train with them. They go like, how much you weigh, Professor? I say like, you know, 155, 158, around that. 160 when I'm out of shape, 162. And they go like, Professor, but you feel like, you know, 250 pounds. You feel like super heavy. And I couldn't believe it. And a lot of people complain about that, you know, even black belts when I train with, you know. And that's one thing that that with age I got better, you know. I got better in understanding how to put the person uncomfortable and how to use gravity and how to use also the nuances of the game against the guy, you know. So that was for sure something that got better on me 100%, and I hope it gets better on everybody, because when you get old, we have to have something good, for Christ's sake, you know what I mean?
Can I ask you something too? So yes. Does some of that have to do with, because you being so explosive, that you understand where people can explode from and needing to pinch them down?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's not even about being explosive. I think it's a lot of experience. You know, I trained with people from all kinds of games, all kinds of sizes, all kinds of natural abilities. So you start to kind of like, one time I remember Grandmaster Gracie saying something. He said like, look, I'm old, I'm small, But I can see what you're doing. I can feel what you're doing before you even realize you're doing it. You know, and I can kind of feel that a little bit now. I can sometimes, I mean, because of, you know, natural ability, technique, explosion, they're gonna get me anyway. Like Lucas, for example. I know Lucas is gonna get me on the freaking triangle. I see it coming, but I still can stop it sometimes. Yeah. You know, he still does it. He just did it to me today. But I see it coming. It's not like, oh dang, it's there. No, I see it, I sense it. I see how they move and how they progress. I know what he wants. You know, so that is, I think, not even related too much, Kobe, about me being explosive in the past. You know, it's more about understanding how things work and how your body moves and how the situation, you know, transform, and then I kind of sense that. I think it's more experience.
That's what I was. The reason I was saying, because when I got armbarred real bad over here,
yeah,
my arm bars felt like they got better because I was so defensive with it happening that I started understanding.
You understand the mechanism?
Yeah, better after the injury, and so that's kind of what I was trying to.
That's for sure. No, yeah, it happens too. But again, man, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's experience. You being on board and having your arm hurt gave you experience to try to understand a little better and defend a little better and be better at it too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's cool.
I'm not.
There were some intense matches, man, back then. I was watching some. Oh, because someone, you know what it was? Someone uploaded a Hoyler video that I hadn't seen before. Yeah, he got poked in the eye.
Yeah, that me on that time and a little bit before, it was like the peak of athleticism. You know, it was like what?
Can you imagine if YouTube was around back then? God, it'd be cool to see some of those old videos.
But you know, man, like one thing that I regret: 95% of my matches are not filmed.
Yeah.
Number one, because back in the day, especially in Brazil, I mean, for you to have a video cassette camera was like super expensive, and they had like those like
big ones, the shoulder.
Yeah, they look like a rocket launcher, you know. and two, for some reason, I always get that thing that man, I still today, I'm not. It's bad. I know I regret, but I'm not the big guy in taking pictures when I travel, or when I do like a seminar to film. When I used to compete, hey, you want to take a pictures? I was like, oh, whatever. I'm just focusing on this. I just want to win. I lost my medals. I got into the moment, but I didn't give a lot of value to that kind of thing. And man, I regret a lot. Yeah. There's one thing though that I want to kill my brother since today. I had a bunch of my matches from blue and purple belt against like really famous and tough guys. Renato Tavares, like 4 times world master champion, and Jamelão and João Roque, all those like Parrupinha, all those like really, really tough guys. And back in the day, you used to have like those video cassette tapes. And if you put like a little plastic stuff on top of a little hole, you could record on top of this. So we found out that if you put like a little thing, you can record on top of what's recorded.
Oh wow.
And then you know what my brother did one time? He didn't know, he put that thing and he recorded a soap opera from Brazil that he couldn't watch. And there was like freaking soap opera on top of like a bunch of like badass matches. I'm still gonna kill him for that.
That would be brutal.
Crazy. It was probably, I don't know, 10 matches or something.
That would be brutal. Yeah. There's not like other people that had it that you could...
Man, I thought about it the other day. But I mean, I lost contact with a lot of people, and some of the people, honestly, I don't know. Yeah. I don't even have a clue who could have filmed that thing.
Yeah.
One of the guys that used to have like a big collection, he passed away, Master Paquetá, Osvaldo Paquetá. He was the first guy in the history of Jiu-Jitsu to document all the big tournaments, and he had like a library of like video cassette tapes in his house. But he passed away like, I don't know, maybe like 12 years ago, 10 years ago. And a lot of those images, I don't even know what happened. Like, his family has it, but you know, one of those things, you know, man, if somebody puts their hand on that thing, it's going to be a lot of money, a lot of good stuff in there, that's for sure, you know. Matthew Rio, Texas. I hope I'm right, brother. I'm sorry.
Another question I would like answered is what he feels the difference are between the Helio and Carlos lineages. Is it really self-defense versus sport, or is there more to it than that?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. Well, I'm gonna give you my intake on that, okay? And I'm gonna try to be as much as I can, not biased to my side, which is the Carlos side, and being 100% fair. Everybody who knows and lived and understands about the history of Jiu-Jitsu knows that it's the same art. You know, Grandmaster Carlos was the one that learned from Count Koma, from the Japanese legend fighter, Count Koma Mitsumaeda, and he taught to his brothers, and I heard actually, that's what history says, that George Gracie, they call him the, I think the lion, I think the blood lion, something like that, I'm trying to translate. He was like the best fighter in the beginning because he was really athletic and really, really good. But Grandmaster Helio, you have to say, he was still is like the real samurai. Like a mind of, like a samurai and an iron mind, like one of the toughest men in history of humanity alive. And he wasn't very athletic. Actually, the opposite. He was frail, physically speaking. And he developed a more defensive side of jiu-jitsu that is like big part of our jiu-jitsu, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you want to call it. And he was the one that incorporated a lot of the guard work, like being on your back without being in a rush, developing good defensive skills, not getting your guard passed or not getting hit from a real fight, like strike-wise and all that, and submitting a lot of people from the guard. So Grandmaster Helio incorporated that kind of thing versus the more, I would say, aggressive style, like more in your face, like takedowns and being aggressive side that came from Mitsumaeda and Carlos and George. So it was a big mix and a perfect mix, you know. I mean, it's the same one. Everybody came from the same one. Grandmaster Carlos taught everybody, all his brothers, you know. So it's the same sport. I really don't like it. I don't understand that division that people do, you know, like, oh, Helio's side is 100% self-defense. Carlos' side is 100% sport. That's not, I don't see that way at all. Because I learned from 100% from the Carlos side. I learned from my master, Carlos Gracie Jr., the son of Master Carlos. I learned from my shadow brothers. There are direct students from Master Carlos Gracie Jr. and Henzo, that are son of Hobson and everybody. So I had my learning process 100% from the Carlos side. But I got exposed to training and competing against the Helio side, whatever you want to call it, competing against Hoyler a bunch of times, and a bunch of Hoyler and Hickson students during all my career. I competed against them from all belts, from like blue to black. So, and I always thought it was the same jiu-jitsu, you know, like, they're as tough as we were, and with very similar games and everything, and that thing that people say that, oh, the Carlos side doesn't teach self-defense. This is like big, how do you call it? Like a myth. It doesn't happen this way. I teach self-defense every single day. I always did. The beginners, the fundamentals program of Gracie Barra is 100%, I would say, focused in jiu-jitsu against a non-jiu-jitsu person. Jiu-jitsu against an aggressor, a regular aggressor. We have self-defense every single day. On the advanced level, we have a little bit of more advanced self-defense. And not only that, we have the competition, of course. I mean, Gracie Barra is the biggest competition team in the history of the sport. I mean, I was a competitor for all my life. I think jiu-jitsu is too vast and too big for us to subdivide it. I think it's like a big mistake that people are trying to do that differentiation. Because in reality, there's no differentiation. If you come to try a class with me, spend a week here with me, and I change my name to whatever you want to call it, if you're not going to do self-defense in here, if you're not going to do no-gi in here, if you're not going to do takedowns in here, if you're not going to do top and bottom, defense, attack. Jiu-jitsu is big, jiu-jitsu is vast, and you have to make sure that you teach complete jiu-jitsu. Complete jiu-jitsu was the jiu-jitsu that was taught. And I know that a lot of great schools still do it. Some new schools, I'm not going to say names, they love that kind of division that people put nowadays. You know why they love? Because they're selfish. Because they just want to teach whatever they please, whatever they know how to do, or whatever their favorite things. But this is selfish. You have to teach your student not what you like. You have to teach your student what he needs. You cannot get like a brand new white belt that comes into your door that barely understands what jiu-jitsu is. It doesn't even know exactly the difference between jiu-jitsu and karate, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? You have to teach this guy the complete system. You have to teach what jiu-jitsu is, what it came from a self-defense standpoint. to understand the basics. And after he gets better, you're not going to let him do like basics for the rest of his life. You have to, you know, be with an open mind to know the new techniques and embrace the new school and see the high level competitors and put yourself in there and compete and fight, whatever you want to do it, to be a complete fighter. So I think there's no differentiation. We all come from the same source, and we all do the jiu-jitsu that is, you know, Gracie or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if you go into a school that completely sectorizes jiu-jitsu one way or the other, I think you should change schools.
You know, what's funny is, coming from a marketing background, one of the main things that you're trying to do is to take something that's the same and market it in a new way. And that's what I think a lot
Exactly.
is you
There's
trying to-
people that say, I 100% agree with you. Some people say, oh, jiu-jitsu, real jiu-jitsu is only with the gi. No gi sucks. Some other people say, gi is not realistic. You have to be no gi. No gi is the only thing that works. It's not such thing. Everything is jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
Every single little thing is jiu-jitsu. Of course, you have your own preferences, but you have to try to be as complete as you can to teach the student what he needs. The students, especially the beginners, they don't have a clue what they want or they need. A newcomer saying like, oh, I need to learn this and that, he's an idiot. He doesn't know. You know? It's like a guy trying to learn the techniques of running from Usain Bolt. He doesn't even know how to crawl yet. You know, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
I train in a sport-oriented BJJ academy. However, I love the self-defense aspect of jiu-jitsu, Vale Tudo concepts. How can I keep training in the context of Vale Tudo grappling while training in a sports-oriented school? For example, not putting myself in positions that will make me vulnerable to strikes, rather than getting in those positions for the sake of its benefit in the context of sport. Or keeping my opponent's head controlled in case of a headbutt, even though it reduces what I can do in the context of sports jiu-jitsu.
It's again like jiu-jitsu is applicable for every situation, brother. You know, I think jiu-jitsu is such a complete art that I'm biased to say, but I love jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu can be adaptable for everything. So that's the key word for you, adaptation. Okay, you have to make sure that you are able to adapt your jiu-jitsu to whatever the situation comes with. You know, for example, you gave like a great example. Sport grappling, sport jiu-jitsu versus like a real situation. You know, you need to have your basics mastered to be able to do that transition. If you don't have your basics, your fundamental techniques mastered, not even learned, it has to be mastered, you're not going to be able to do that. And then of course you're going to have like somebody that will be able to give you the basics on how to do that adaptation. You know, you're going to have some little inputs in order to do that. And again, it comes from what I just said about being a complete martial artist, being with an open mind to embrace everything that Jiu-Jitsu has to offer. Not sectorizing, not judging, not taking out anything, because everything is Jiu-Jitsu, Jiu-Jitsu is everything. So
This is by Zelek3.
Zelek3.
Given that a lot of his teammates helped revolutionize jiu-jitsu by employing modern guards like spider guard and inverted guard, for example, how does he feel about the newest wave of modern positions like the berimbolo, for instance? And he has a follow-up question, but...
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm like 100% with my mind open to everything new that comes, you know? I don't think like jiu-jitsu is so vast it's going to be impossible for you to be an expert in everything. It's not going to happen, you know? But you need to have an open mind to understand what's going on, at least to be able to defend against what's coming. You know, if you close your mind saying, oh, this is crap, oh, this doesn't work, oh, I don't like that, whatever, that's the beginning of the end. For example, I have like a bad injury disc on my neck and I have a bad back. A lot of people know that. So I'm not too big in being inverted, to being upside down, to have my head underneath like somebody big and somebody heavy. I feel threatened, I don't feel good in there. I feel like it's a big load on my spine and everything. So I don't do it, you know, I don't necessarily do it, but I need to understand how the technique works to make sure that I can defend myself against it when people do it to me. So I practice how to do it in a technical way, in a drilling way, and then I start to analyze where the danger comes from, you know. I mean, I'm biased to say about the spider guard. I was one of the first guys to do it, and I got a lot of criticism back in the day for that, saying it was an ugly game and you should never grab on the sleeve, you should grab on the collar or whatever when you do guard or whatever. But nowadays it's like all over, you know, and all the variation that you see from open guard, a lot of them come from the spider guard. But speaking about like the three main things, the three main new things that people do, the berimbolo, De La Riva guard, and the reverse De La Riva, all that comes from the De La Riva guard, and also the lapel guard, the warm guard, and the 50-50. Well, I don't necessarily do this a lot. I do the De La Riva guard a lot, you know, for things that are not upside down too much. But I'm a big fan on understanding to defend myself, because I train every day with kids that do this like crazy. If I don't understand how it works, and if I close my mind to it, I'm going to be smashed. I don't want to be smashed all the time, even though they do, you know. So I want to understand how they work, and understand how to block it, and not even how to do it. It's too much the whys of the technique. Why people get underneath of you and get your back, or fall on the leg drag, or you know, and I understand, for example, in the berimbolo, that you have to stop the person's head to go underneath of you. If their head goes underneath of you, it's over. It's going to be very tough. You have to kind of scramble yourself out. It's not going to be very technical. So I try to make sure that the head doesn't pass underneath of me, the line of my hip or my leg. I always keep their head away, so I do moves that I want to try to keep a distance in there. You know, in the 50-50, for example, too, I never like them to control my outside leg and my hip, because I get stuck. You know, in the lapel guard, I always try to fight first against the lapel itself, and then if I can't do it, I have to put my body in a way that, you know, it's that kind of thing. So I'm a big fan of seeing what's out there, understand what's out there, and do it if you like, do it if you can. But if you can't do it, keep your eyes open for what's coming, because that's gonna come for you one day or the other, for sure.
It's also like a little bit easier to get better at defending those positions it is to be good offensively with them too. Where
Yeah, I agree with that, because most of the time, I can never generalize in Jiu-Jitsu, it's tough to do that. But most of the time the defense has one step and the attacks has several times. So sometimes when you understand, like for example, like a classical example, armbar from the guard, they have to kind of put your arm in an angle. They have to control your posture. They have to move their body at an angle, and then they step over and then they get you. There's a lot of steps. Versus sometimes you just block the hip, and you know, so that kind of thing. So I could agree with that.
He also has a quick. What do you prefer, training in gi or no gi? Like if you had a preference.
I like both. I genuinely don't have a preference. I love both. I love the transition for both. I love the adaptation for both. I always train both. I don't train too much no gi anymore because of some injuries, and the game gets a little more fast paced and grabbing the leg and driving the head and all that. But I still do also train. I love both. I love both no gi and gi.
His name is Gullig.
Gullig. Gullig.
Gullig.
I hope I'm right, Gullig.
What is his opinion about training at different schools, switching schools, Crianche, and so on?
Man, I mean, whenever you get educated and you get a philosophy inputted in your mind since you're young, it's very hard for you to change that philosophy. You know, I try to be as open-minded as I can to all the innovations and all that, but I'm still like I'm still big into being loyal to your flag. Being loyal to your flag don't necessarily mean that you have to be like kind of like, excuse me the word, an asshole to people from other teams. It's not like that. I have like great friends from all the teams. Some of my best friends are from all the teams. Like I have like Marcelo Playmobil, who's one of my best friends forever, and he's from Carson. He was always Carson Gracie. And he used to hang out with us from Barra more than the Carson Gracie guys, but he never changed his team. He always trained Jiu-Jitsu at Carson's, and he always trained Jiu-Jitsu at the Barra side. So that, I'm just thinking that, you know, I mean, you can be friendly, you can be friends, you can be whatever you want to do on the personal side, and you can eventually train you for friends and roll with them. But when it gets time for you to represent the flag, you have to represent your flag. Because people say, oh, I'm a customer, I pay, and I pay whatever I want, and I represent whoever I want. That's what the new kind of trend is. Jiu-Jitsu with no flags. A lot of people say like Jiu-Jitsu with no flags. I don't agree with that. I agree that, I think that, yeah, if you pay your customer, you're paying peanuts for what you're getting. Learn that in your life. $150, $200 a month is nothing compared to what we gave, what we put our soul and all the knowledge and all the experience from a lifetime of teaching that are giving to you. And in schools like mine, I genuinely try to make you better than me. And I do it. I have tons of students that are way better than me in Jiu-Jitsu, you know, with more advanced techniques and all of things. So this is my kind of thing. I put my heart and soul on you. And I go not over talking about Jiu-Jitsu things. I'm gonna be somebody that's gonna be, as much as I can, helping you out in other parts of life. You know, I treat my students as family. I put all my heart and soul in them. And then whatever I heard from them, like, oh, now I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna train you with these guys, and I don't know who I'm gonna represent. I'm free to go whatever I want, whatever. Fine, it's your way to think. If you wanna think like that, you do it. But get the heck out of there. Go and represent whoever you want to represent. Be a missionary. Be a no flag guy. Be like one of those people that never had a flag and never was loyal to one thing in your life. Do it. No problem. Do whatever you want. And I'm still going to say hi to you. As long as you don't talk crap about me and cross my path. But, you know, I mean, that's my way of thinking. On the time of you to choose your flag, not only by Jiu-Jitsu teams, but the Jiu-Jitsu flag, there's going to be times that they're going to be put in check. They're going to put you in check. So, all right, what's the school you represent? Which school you represent? This one or this one? Oh, I really don't represent nothing. I represent my name and myself. Sometimes I'm going to go there. No. One day you're going to be put in check and I have to choose. You know, when that kind of time comes, I'm going to see if you are worth it for me to put my heart and soul on you, or if you're not. That's simple as it is. So that's the way I think. And guess what? There's going to be times that you're going to be a little mad with your teammates, even if you're a professor. There's going to be good times, bad times and good times. It's like family. You abandon family. When you get in a discussion with your brother, when you're not getting along with your wife, you're going to abandon them. You're going to abandon your kids. No, we're not going to abandon your kids. It's going to be a tough time that you're going to rough it up, and then everything's going to be fine again. That's how I think I treat my students as family. Okay? Unfortunately, you need money in the world, so everybody has to be paid. But I still think that the amount that people pay in Jiu-Jitsu in a school like that and other thousands of other schools all over the world is peanuts from the benefit that you get from complete and good and based on philosophy Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, so that's how I think. So winning, you know, do whatever you want. You know, if you want to be a Crunchi, people say, by the way, if you don't know what Crunchi is like a slang from Grandmaster Custom Racing that people who hops gyms and train all their lives in one school and then go to another school for the first difficulty or just for selfish reasons. That's how they call Crunchi. But anyway, you know, you can choose to be a Crunchi or not being a Crunchi. It's on your hands, you know.
You know, I was thinking about this because I was reading a post, and I was wondering, like, because a lot of Americans kind of have the idea of what you're talking about, like, where it's just a coach,
Yes.
And I started at 5 years old in Taekwondo, and a master was a master to you, like, it's traditional. And I trained with a world champion straight out of Korea. He just came over here. He beat you with sticks when you were late, like, not in a bad way, but like he would spank you.
Old school.
Yeah, you would do push-ups on your knuckles outside. So like he was an authority figure in my life, you know, growing up. And so I kind of have the same mentality as you, that it's not something that you bounce around. He's a part of your family. He was like a figurehead in my life. And that's ingrained in me from a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people, and I played football too. And so in football, you bounce, you go to a new school. And I always wonder, like, is that why? Because a lot of people don't have that initial interaction with a coach where they see it like, okay, you go to Clear Creek High School, then you go to another state and you get a coach there and you go, I wonder if...
I think it could be. In reality, here in America, the Creonte thing, whatever you want to call it, is it's not a big deal too much for people. And I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can understand. I can understand that because, like you said, this is a different culture. I think that a lot of people that comes from a martial art background, they understand a little better the loyalty thing, the figurehead thing, the respect, and the loyalty, and the samurai spirit, and the good and the bad, that kind of thing. I think people from martial arts background understand this better, but not necessarily people from sports background. For example, in Brazil, the biggest sport is soccer. Okay, and people bounce around teams like crazy. It's professional. It's like about money. They don't make any kind of they say, oh man, I have to be loyal to this team because they give me everything. No, they pay them more. They go and whatever. But on the martial arts side, in Brazil, it's still pretty bad to be called a Creole team. Mm-hmm. People feel bad. Even though they do it, a lot of people do it, they feel bad.
Yeah.
They get kind of like a bad reputation in the community. People say, oh, this guy's really good, but man, this guy's a Creole. You cannot trust this guy too much. He trained all his life with this team, and I'll talk crap about this team, and then he goes to the other one and talks crap about the other one and hops around a lot, So that happens in Brazil. It's a little stronger, that culture still, but here not. And man, I'm not gonna be also saying that, oh man, you have to be loyal 100%. Sometimes there's really bad professors, really bad coaches too, man. People that take advantage of the students, and that's totally wrong. The people that unfortunately, the people that go on the personal side and do bad things on the personal side for people. That's horrible. That's terrible. And they use their authority to make sure that they get something out of that. Bad stuff. That's totally wrong. Don't get me wrong. But I think that if you were helped, if you always was treated fairly, if you always in a family environment all your life, and if you get your titles, if you got the knowledge that you need, if you were to be a champion in your school, or if you got the best that you can be at the school, I don't think there's a reason for you to leave. What would be the reason for you to leave?
It all makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of those things.
I see it like you put a shield and a sword in my hand. Who am I to start attacking my own teammates?
Exactly.
Show me how to swing
you get somebody from the hands like a little baby, teach them how to walk, teach them how to eat, teach them how to behave, teach them everything. And then whenever they got older, they try to bite you. They try to fight you. It seems like they envied everything that you represent. Instead of admiring and get inspired by it and do your own.
Yeah.
They want to have your stuff.
Yeah.
I want to get everything he has.
Yeah.
I want to put him down. I want to destroy him.
Yeah.
Even though he taught me everything doesn't matter. I want to have what he has. That's bad character. It's all over. What can you do? We live in a world that is civilized and with laws and everything. So what can you do?
So this one's kind of answered. I wish I would have did this. His name is Old and Busted.
Old and Busted?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man! Don't be hard on yourself, Old and Busted.
And he said, as he's aged, how has he changed or adapted his technique, if all? So it's kind of like the other.
Kind of like the other one, yeah. Old and Busted. Listen up. Advice number 1. Warm yourself really well before every single training practice, okay? This is very important. All my injuries came from thinking that I was still a kid. And I'm not a kid anymore. I'm gonna be 47 soon. This is number 1. Number 2, don't get offended and mad if you get tapped out and smashed by the young bulls. It's gonna happen, okay? Number 3, probably the best one. Remember that you have an edge against almost all the guys that you're going to go against with. Wisdom. You're a wise man. Use that in your favor.
Alright, this is a more generalized question, he said. His name is Highway 0311.
Okay.
How much time would you recommend learning new techniques to make you well-rounded versus getting better at things you're already good at? Everyone knows the guy that will get everyone else with his one special move, like a triangle, for example. He always goes for it in any position he can, almost never goes for anything else. Then there's a guy that tries 15 different subs on you until finally one sticks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a dilemma, brother. Mr. Highway 0311, I guess. That's a dilemma because, I mean, you don't want to be like a just one-trick pony, but also you don't want to be like a jack of all trades and master of none, if you know what I mean. You know, I think there's a fine balance. I think, like I said, it comes back for you to embrace all the new techniques and try it out and understand them. But I also think that in order to be lethal in any technique, you have to practice this a lot. I'm a big fan of you to have a big overall game and a couple of things that you're a specialist. You know, being a specialist and not knowing anything else is dangerous. As dangerous as for you to be, like I said, like not good in anything really, kind of like okay in everything, and never going to be lethal with anything. So I think it's impossible to be lethal in everything. It's not going to happen. We're all humans. Jiu-Jitsu is so vast and huge that you're not going to be an expert in everything that Jiu-Jitsu has to offer. But you have to have your go-to moves, but a really, really good overall game, because guess what? One day you're going to need to use that kind of game that you don't like it, or you didn't put effort into it. One day you're going to be exposed and you need to use it. So open your mind.
This guy just had a comment. I think it might be cool to use this. His name's Atheist. I had the opportunity to attend a seminar under Professor Draculino at the GB World Summit. I knew he was a legend, and I expected to learn some of the old school jiu-jitsu, knowing that he was one of the Master Carlos Gracie Jr.'s first black belts. So what did he demonstrate? Worm guard counters. My mind was blown. The guy put on a fantastic seminar. He was so current with his game, just a brilliant jiu-jitsu mind. With all due respect to my professor, I can't imagine how much more technical my game would be if I had the opportunity to train under him regularly. I'm excited to see the Q&A.
Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you were there. It comes back from an open mind thing we talked about, Colby. It comes back to embrace the new techniques, but always keeping a solid and intense fundamental approach. What I taught on that specific seminar was how a strong foundation and fundamental and understanding about the overall big picture of Jiu-Jitsu can nullify the new stuff. That was exactly what I did. But in order to do that, you need to understand how the new stuff works. So in that specific seminar, it was berimbolo counters and the warm guard counters too. So I think it was pretty cool. I did stuff that are really cool to see, but all based on an understanding of the big picture of Jiu-Jitsu. You know, like we talked about before too, about, you know, not getting the head go underneath, not passing the hip, the line of the hip and everything, and how to properly put your angles of your body in order to block it. It was that kind of thing. So it comes back for you to don't do it if you don't like it, don't do it if you can't, but you need to understand what's going on. You know, you have to understand what's coming from these new guys, what's coming from the new school. So, you know, that's pretty much what I do and I'm always going to do until my body allows me to do.
Pro do Plata. I think Draculino had ACL surgery. I'd be curious what his recovery was and how it was returning to the mat.
Yeah, I had ACL surgery. I'm not gonna lie, it's annoying, it's tough, you know. I mean, like, I got hurt like exactly 17 or 18 days before a big MMA fight I was doing in Brazil. I was really training really hard. I was probably in the best shape of my life, physical wise, you know, training like a lot of like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, like striking. I was in really good shape. I was not a good fight for people to pick with. I was like in really good shape to fight, but I got hurt. I was training in New York at Henzo's and I got hurt. And I knew right away when it happened that something wrong happened, because I felt my knee coming completely out of place and a big pop that everybody heard on the room. It was like I'm like a shotgun shot. And then yeah, anyway, I had that injury and I didn't have a lot of problems, brother. It could be wrong, but on the range of motion, like pretty quick, I was putting my ankle here, like that. But my biggest problem was that my leg shrank. Like right when I got hurt, my doctor said it's like a brain thing. It shoots it gives you a command that the leg has to relax completely. The muscle that the leg has to relax to make sure that everything gets fixed properly and the body heals by itself, whatever it is. And then my legs were like, man, my legs were like super, I was in great shape, legs strong and everything. And a funny thing is that right when I got hurt, it was in such a good shape that I didn't give that movement, the how do you call it, like I don't know how to say in English, say gaveta in Portuguese. When your knee gives out, when you do that exam, my knee was stable, but it was like very swollen and hurting in the back. I couldn't walk and couldn't stretch the leg. And then when I did the MRI, it was completely torn, 100%. But with 2 days, my legs were already doing like, man, my legs were like kind of like an old man. It was flaccid, like this, and that scared me. I was like, man, when I had my meniscus injury, also my surgery on my meniscus, it was kind of the same thing, but took a little, it took a little longer for my legs to, man, this time was just like, I don't know, 2 days, something crazy like that. And then the tough part was like, to make sure that you're confident enough to build your legs strong again and make sure that also the big thing is for you to focus 100% on physical therapy. The surgery, of course, is important to be properly done, of course, but the physical therapy is the most important thing. Like a lot of people, they do the surgery, whatever, time's gonna, heal all that. It's not even close to the truth. You have to be persistent. I remember that was like 4 hours a day for 4 months, or a little over 4 months. 4 hours a day religiously. I used to go to the place, to the physical therapy place, a lot of great physical therapy team, and boom, work, swimming pool, like a range of motion, and then lifting weights, and it's like a small healing process. The technique that I did, I don't know which one you're going to do, what you did, but the ones I took a little piece of my patella tendon and I made it as a new ligament, and it's fine so far. I don't have like any major issues. I had this surgery exactly 13 or 14 years ago, and my knee's fine. Sometimes I run, it gets a little bit of fluid, but nothing major. Still have range of motion. It's fine now.
My mom did the same thing. Like 4 days with a herniated disc, just atrophied.
Atrophied right away. Yeah, it's the body.
I couldn't even lift a mill jug.
Yeah.
God.
The body gives the command for the muscles to be relaxed, and the healing process works. It's all the brain, man. The brain's like
Powerful.
Yeah, it's like a computer.
This question comes from Tatamilo. My favorite podcast interviews are Draculino's. The open mat was a classic. My question would be something I was just discussing in another thread. Which Gracie Barra guys were responsible for which guards? Like we all know Gordo was half guard, Draculino was spider guard, Nino did the fucking hover guard.
Hover guard! Leave it as it is. He's 32 Brazilian guy.
I've heard this joke so many times.
Not even we say hover guard anymore. Say rubber.
Rubber guard. Jesus Christ. Alright.
Yeah.
Nino did the rubber guard, etc. Maybe just a discussion into the different styles of the group he trained with, and which one was the best in his opinion.
Like you're pretty accurate, but I mean, let me put a little clarifying a couple of things, okay? I was good in spider guard in the competition level, but the first guy to be successful in the spider guard and do this in an amazing way was Renzo Gracie. I actually copied him. I put a couple of new things because I competed a lot. I was really good on that, but Renzo should be more well known than me at the spider guard. Let's put it this way. From all these guys, I think we have to go back to Master Carlos Gracie Jr. because everybody that he taught in a way that I told you about being overall, about being like about the big picture, and he's like killer. Master Carlos Gracie Jr. is killer on that classic hand on the collar and foot on the hip guard, and the other foot being kind of on the biceps, kind of like a pre-spider guard but not with the grip, And if you think about it, everything came from there. Everything that we do came from there. Even the De La Riva, that Master De La Riva did it later, but we're still doing it too, came from that kind of guard. because I was never one of the biggest guys, and certainly Renzo wasn't too. Renzo was a featherweight for a lot of time in his life, and I was like, what, roosterweight? We didn't have like enough reach to have that foot on the hip and the hand on the collar and be comfortable there. So when Renzo started to do both hands on the sleeve and be like a little controlling the distance a little easier, that was great for me. But all came from that kind of thing. And Grandmaster and Master Carlos Gracie Jr. from there used to close the guard when he needed to, used to climb the leg over the shoulder to control, kind of like the rubber guard or high guard, whatever you want to call it. You know, the half guard, even the half guard, sometimes people would, you know, step out, push the leg down and step over to try to pass, and then Master Carlos used to put in half guard and work from there. All of this game that came from us came originally from from Master Carlos Gracie Jr., you know, I mean, from the classic guard. And my spider guard, people want to call it, my spider guard, for example, you see Romulo nowadays. Romulo does with a lot more with the hand on the collar and the foot on the biceps versus the both hands on the sleeves. He does hand on the collar and hand on the sleeve. This was an adaptation that came actually for his first teacher, Cristiano teaching my student too. So, you know, it evolves, it develops. And that's the beauty of Jiu-Jitsu. It comes from this, and then it goes in a bunch of different branches until we have, like you mentioned, all those guys that you mentioned from Gracie Barra, and my guys that come from me and doing all this kind of like, for example, Samuel Braga. Samuel Braga was the first guy to do berimbolo, man. A lot of people will say, oh, was the creator of berimbolo inventor? No, he wasn't. I saw him doing this in 2005, double guard pull, spinning underneath and getting people's back. It's recorded, it's online, you can see it. He was the first guy to do it. And it came from the De La Riva game that came from us, so it's all an evolution. So, you know, if you want to tell me the one that is best, I would say Master Carlos Gracie Jr., because we all came from him.
He wanted to also know who did the most coaching at the old Baja. Was it the Machados or Carlos himself?
I mean, I'm going to tell from my experience, okay? Whenever I first joined the school, back in the early 80s, Master Carlos was teaching once or twice a week for the more advanced students. It was like more purple belts and up in his class. The guys that used to teach, like the whites and the blue belts, were the Machado brothers. So the first guy that actually taught me was Master Carlos Machado. Carlos Machado, he's in Dallas now. An amazing instructor, like perfectly didactics and perfect basics. Then it changed to Jean-Jacques, Master Jean-Jacques Machado, and he was the one that actually was one of the most important coaches for me to make me a competitor in the beginning. He taught me until the purple belt, but he was really like strong on competition and pushing and incentive us. But I used to train, even though most of the people from my generation are training with Jean-Jacques, I always loved to train with Master Carlos. So Master Carlos let me train in his class sometimes, and I always created a bond with him. So he used to go, and remember, like Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I was one of the only new guys that used to go to Master Carlos classes, and I always, you know, always clicked. It was always great. Whenever Jean-Jacques left to the States with Higa Machado and all those guys, then Master Carlos was the best time. That was the best time, I would say, the golden era of Gracie Barra, because he was very inspired and teaching everybody. Master Carlos was like there every single day, morning and nighttime, teaching like killer class. He was inspired. He was happy to be there. He was pushing us. That's when I got one of the biggest development on my jiu-jitsu. In his way, he was, like I said, more a big picture guy, inspiring you more than anything. But man, it was like a golden time for us. That's when really Gracie Barra surpassed the Carson Gracie team. Because Carson Gracie team in the 80s was the dominant one. But late 80s and beginning of the 90s, we started to be the number one. And that was exactly when the time that Master Carlos Gracie Jr. put the hands on us. It was like, man, like the room was full of killers. And it was like more adrenaline than a tournament. He used to sit there, see that sea of tough guys, and choose Draculino, go against Soneca, goes Gordo goes against Half Gracie. Márcio Feitosa goes against Duda. Man, you know, it was like amazing. So it made us all of us better. So I would say, if I want to say the best time for me coaching wise and that I learned more and I got tougher, was this time.
A guy DIY style said, "What happened to Big Head?"
Big Head. I talk to Big Head every single day. Every single day. I just came back from Portugal and I got food poisoning there. It was a bad, really bad one. I thought I was going to die. And a lot of people don't know, Big Head is a doctor. Big Head is the head director of a whole hospital in Brazil.
Head director.
Head director. And Big Head is a crazy guy, don't get me wrong. I love him, but he's a crazy guy. And he was the one that treated me from far away until I went to the hospital and then, you know, got IV'd and antibiotics and all that. But he was the first one to give me, because I couldn't get in touch with my dad. My dad is a doctor too, but I couldn't get in touch with him, so I got in touch with Big Head. So Big Head is a doctor nowadays, head director of a hospital, and he has a kid and a wife, and he's still crazy. That's Big Head.
This other one, this is the Tatami Low guy again. He wanted to know what he thinks of the no-gi sub-only movement, and if he thinks old school traditional coaches should add more no-gi classes in their schedules to adapt to the times and cater to the students that want to compete in both, or maybe he thinks that training the gi still benefits the no-gi.
Man, I think it's really cool, this new movement. I believe it's like innovation, a good innovation that makes people embrace the complete jiu-jitsu. People start a little, they don't get on the comfort zone too much anymore. They used to do only, you know, kind of IBJJF kind of style. They have to kind of change their games a little bit in order to adapt for this new no-gi submission only. I'm a big fan. I have absolutely nothing against that. By contrary, we have students that compete on those rules. I mean, Lucas just competed on the EBI, Eddie Bravo Invitational, the other day, and you know, he did good, really, really good. He got, you know, he lost in the semifinals to Gary Tonon, but he did a really good performance, submitted everybody before that, and he comes back from a complete jiu-jitsu. I think you should be able to do anything. That's how I try to teach my students. I want to teach jiu-jitsu to my students that they can do anything related to grappling if they need to. You know, I mean, they can do no gi, submission only, with the gi, without the gi. They can do IBJJF. They can do, you know, what's the other rules going around? ADCC. I had students that were ADCC world champions before, and that's the kind of jiu-jitsu that we teach here. We teach a very complete approach system that you can adapt to everything that you do. If you believe in our system and if you stick to it, you're going to be able to do whatever you want. Of course, you have to be more specific. Before the EBI, you have to adapt Lucas a little bit to the rules. You know, I mean, they have like a little different rules in the sense of the overtime and all that. And then you have to kind of like pay a little more attention on this. But if you have a complete game, you're going to be fine anywhere. I'm against, like I said, sectorizing jiu-jitsu. I'm against saying like, man, like no gi, no time limit is the real jiu-jitsu, everything else is crap. Or people say, man, the IBJJF is the only thing because it's a real world champion title. Or people say, man, the ADCC is the Olympics of the sport, that's the rules that I have to train. You have to be able to do it all, you know.
This is by Jumbo Humbo.
Jumbo Humbo?
Jumbo Humbo. I would like to know what he does off the mats to keep him healthy to continue training. Does he do strength training, yoga, mobility, other sports, clean diet, etc.? Yeah,
I do. I work out at the gym for maintenance. I don't compete for a long time. I don't compete since 2010 on an MMA fight. But I'm always training. I train jiu-jitsu at least 3 times a week. And I go to the gym to lift weights twice a week. When I do maintenance, like I said, I do like more kind of like a, how do you call it, like a functional training that I lift not super heavy weights, but I do in a pyramid. I do like a lot of repetition with slow weights, and then the next one I put a little more weight and a little less repetitions, and then the last one is like heavier weight with less repetitions, and I do cardio also. After I do all this mix with a full body workout kind of thing, I go and I do aerobics. So I do normally that transfer thing because of the impact on my knee, because like I said, it swells a little bit when I run. So I do like 45 minutes of that. So that's my routine twice a week, and I do yoga once a week. Yoga is amazing. I have an amazing coach, Coach Mariana Azevedo. She's the wife of one of my best students, Marcelo Rapuru Azevedo, and I train once a week with her. And yoga is amazing. I mean, yoga, man, it aligns me. It makes me breathe better. You know, it stretches me. After the yoga class, I feel that I'm aligned. You know, it's pretty cool. So that's pretty much what I do. You know, I mean, when I have the chance and I'm close to a beach, I surf. I love surfing. It's one of my favorite, you know, things to do. And besides that, that's pretty much it. You know, I mean, if I'm crazy enough to do a competition again, then I'm going to change the routine a little bit. I'm going to train more. I'm going to put more emphasis on the physical conditioning. But that's my maintenance thing that I do.
I do yoga every morning. That's the best thing.
Best
I wish
thing.
I would have started that a long time ago.
It's amazing.
All right. Ouch, my shoulder. Ow, wow, wow.
That's me? Are you sure it's not me there?
He says, has he advanced the Scarecrow guard since he last did his seminar? How do you deal with short legs and the Scarecrow guard?
I actually did, brother. I actually did. I have a couple new things, especially chokes. I have some new chokes in there. There's so many chokes you can do from there. In relate to the short legs, it's a challenge. I'm not gonna lie, it's a challenge. I mean, if you have long legs, it's easier, but you gotta compensate that with the short legs with better angles with your hips. You know, you gotta move your hips to get better angles and a little bit of more posture control to compensate. But I'm not gonna lie, like long legs help a little bit on that.
Yeah, Hannah Valley.
Hannah Valley. Hannah, is the same question that somebody had before, but you know, like you can answer. It's a combination, it's a balance. You know, being just good in one thing only is not good, but being okay or average in everything and not good in one is not good either. So have a couple to-go moves that you can do to anybody at any time, but keep your mind open to use everything else, because one day you're gonna need to use this.
He says, I want to know why Draculino started playing the spider guard in the first place. None of the other guards worked for him. None of the other guards accomplished what he was trying to accomplish. Like, what was it? Was it more just because it was interesting, or there was a specific thing that it was?
Yeah, it's like I said a little bit before. I was always short and small. My legs were never like too big. So the classic guard with the foot on the hip and the hand on the collar is amazing. But I felt a little bit hard to do with like people who had like taller than me, like people with more reach than me on legs and arms. And then when I saw Renzo doing that, Renzo was also a small guy, not as small as me, but small. And he's doing this in controlling people, and people couldn't pass, and he was a really good defensive position. I loved it, and I started to do it, to play with this, and I started to experiment how it would fit on my game. I always had a decent guard because I was always flexible. When I was younger, I was really flexible, and a good hip movement, so it was always hard to pass my guard. But I always felt that the transition from closed guard to an open guard, whenever people open my guard, I felt kind of more just like surviving, trying to not get my guard passed and try to stand up or to sweep or whatever, versus having a good control, you know, on the open guard. And the spider guy gave me that. You know, the spider guy gave me like a good way to, after people open my closed guard. By the way, my closed guard is pretty good too. A lot of people don't know. But when people were able to open my closed guard, I used to have the spider guy to control people, to put people in difficulty to pass my guard. And then from there, I started to do, you know, a lot of the new things, you know what I mean? But the approach was more to be defensive first, like Renzo was. You know, I saw Renzo put people there, people couldn't pass his guard. And I love that because I didn't have to fight too much. People got on my side, push them, and get the leg over, turn on fours and all that. So the spider guy was safe. I was following the guy. I was controlling the posture. I was like holding the sleeve. So I loved it. It was more for a necessity than anything.
How do you figure out when things should be explored when they're new areas versus sticking to things that are already working and getting better at those?
That's a tough question. I think it comes back for you to not learn and be good at, but to master the basics. You have to master basic jiu-jitsu. You have to make sure that you are a master on the fundamentals. If you are, then you can go wherever you want. You know, it always comes back to this. If you have a flaw on your fundamentals, you're gonna get exposed. I see, man, like little people that are like amazing fighters, amazing competitors, but because sometimes they skip a little bit of the fundamentals, they get exposed to a couple of things, you know, and that's gonna be their weak spot. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's the defense. Sometimes it's a stand-up game, like they don't have like a good posture. Sometimes they can't pass like a close guard well because they don't have posture in there. Sometimes like they cannot get a good guard recovery. They're like killer on a lot of guards, but when somebody passes the line of the knee, they freak out, you know. So it comes back for you to be a master on the basics. If you're a master on the basics, you're gonna be fine. You can do whatever you want.
Right, this is the last one, but so you can either try to answer this, or I was thinking maybe we could do something different. But he wants to know, what is your #1 technical tip? Example, when doing arm bars from guard, instead of sliding your hips on the ground, lift and turn. And so I asked him, I said, are you asking for a specific technique or just one of the coolest things? And or would you want to maybe just later on we can refilm one technique and that kind of can be his thing?
Yeah, I mean, what's his name? Or her name?
It is VMBJJ.
VMBJJ? Man, like my name, Vinicius Magalhães, BJJ? You sure not me? Or maybe Pezão, Vinicius Magalhães, like great UFC fighter, Vinicius Magalhães too, an amazing fighter. It's a tough question. I mean, I'm gonna try to be like overall big picture here, okay? Every technique has what we call in Brazil. It's a funny thing. It's hard for you guys Americans to understand, but the slang in Brazil is the jump of the cat. The jump of the cat means the most important detail and part of the techniques. And this applies to every single technique in Jiu-Jitsu. What is the jump of the cat in every technique? Then I'm going to give you one simple example. You know, as you said, Kobe, about the armbar from the guard. What's the jump of the cat on the armbar, on doing the armbar? It's control where the elbow is. You make sure that the elbow of the person that you're attacking is in the proper place for you to do all the steps necessary there. If the elbow is out of reach, you can break their posture, you can do whatever you want. You're gonna have to use a lot of strength and ability to finish. But if you put the elbow where it needs to be, everything gets easier for you to do. It's not even controlling the posture, not even like hand here and there, or angle. All this is important, but the jump of the cat is where the elbow should be for you to be able to do the steps to finish. So every technique, this is applied to every technique. You name it, every technique, any throw, any choke, any defense move, anything. So, you know, we can actually, like you said, you know, we can choose a topic, a technique, and I can show exactly where the jump of the cat is.
Cool.
Guys, thank you very much for the questions. They were amazing questions. There was no stupid question, thank God. They were amazing questions. I hope you guys can take something out of that. And I'm going to try to interact more online this year, guys. I mean, I've been really busy this past year. I didn't have time to do anything. But I'm going to try to be a little more present and try to share what I do and try to share the philosophy of Gracie Barra, that is my philosophy, to everybody to make our scene, our Jiu-Jitsu better. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview. What we'd like to do next is set up some time to do an Ask Me Anything. Professor Draculino had a great time talking with you guys. He thinks we have a great community here at Reddit. And so he wants to block off some time to do a live Q&A with you guys in the Ask Me Anything format. So I will make a post to let you know in advance when he has that time available. And that way you can kind of prepare for it. And then if you guys are interested, you can come ask him anything you want and get some live feedback from him. So again, thank you for the wonderful questions. I had a great time. He had a great time. And we look forward to doing it with you guys again in the future.